and welcome to Purely in Conversation, Later Life Lending with me, Gemma Brown. Today I'm joined by Gavin Hancock and Beth Lawson from Pure Retirement's Underwriting Department. Would you like to both introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your roles and what your day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, sure. My name's Gav. I head up the underwriting and post-offer functions at Pure Retirement. My role primarily focuses on delivering consistent and responsible decisions whilst continuously improving how we support the advisor and their clients.
Yeah.
Day to day, it involves analysing trends, refining processes, and working with our partners, supporting our underwriting team and making clear, fair, consistent decisions.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Beth. I've been with the underwriting department since 2016 and I'm the underwriting department manager. I essentially oversee the department, knowing lending criteria inside and out and all the processes that we do while supporting all of the underwriters. My job is essentially managing risk whilst making sure we can get as many good propositions over the line as we can.
Yeah, okay. So how did you both end up in underwriting?
It's a really good question. Curiosity, I would say. After years of being an advisor, I wanted to take a peek over the other side of the fence and kind of see how it all worked. What's come from that is kind of a great understanding of how each decision directly impacts the customer's plans for later life, which makes it both challenging and rewarding.
Yeah, that's a really good background to have, isn't it? So you've seen it from both sides.
Absolutely,
great,
underwriting for about 15 years now and about 7 years prior to that as an advisor. So it's great to have that understanding of, say, both sides there.
Brilliant. And Beth, what about you?
So I started out at Barclays. I joined straight out of leaving college. I think it was in 2012 as a customer service agent, and then I joined the underwriting department there. If I'm being honest, it was just I wasn't quite sure what to do, so I joined. But I was in the high value lending team, and I absolutely loved it. I loved looking at all the nitty gritty of an application, seeing what I can do to help a customer. And I worked there up until joining Pure in 2016, and I've been with the underwriting department ever since.
Oh, well, okay. So what's one part of your role or one part of an underwriter's role that advisors probably misunderstand?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that we love declining cases, that we go around ringing a bell or high-fiving every time we get that. In reality, we like to explore every single avenue, look at how we can proceed with the case, turn a no into a yes. And it comes with having that real understanding that behind every case, there is a client, there is an advisor, and that journey that they've already gone through at that point. And like I said, the previous experience that as an advisor really helps me put me in that seat, really, to understand that. Yeah,
that's really interesting. And what about you, Beth?
So not necessarily misunderstand, but I think a common misconception is that underwriters request unnecessary documents. With our rules, we are bound by strict regulatory and funder requirements, but we'll only ever request what's necessary to make a lending decision. And I think sometimes it might come across that we want nice to haves, but we'll only ever ask for something if we genuinely need it, not to be difficult. But I can understand if you've got a complicated application, it might look that way. But it's only ever the absolute necessary that we need.
And what process do underwriters follow when having to decline an application? So you've mentioned that we don't like to decline them, but obviously we know sometimes it happens.
No, absolutely. And as I mentioned before, it's never taken lightly. We do want to look at exploring all alternatives before doing that. Once we've exhausted all the options that we can't proceed, we focus on clear communication with the advisor so they can fully understand the rationale behind the reason. And we want to engage in conversation, so the primary use is the telephone to talk it through, just so we can have a real conversation about the case rather than it being a cold email that comes through. What we then do is, from these cases where we've explored all avenues and we can't proceed, we look at trends and we analyse these trends internally and also externally with funders to see, is there anything that we can look at turning these no's into yeses? Can we look at tweaking processes or criteria to help even further?
That's really good. So what types of properties will tend to cause issues with underwriting?
Mainly it's properties that have issues over long-term marketability. That's the key bit that we look at. With equity released properties is key. So that's going to be the main issue that we look at there.
So I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is properties with estate charges, because that's what I see the most of in my role.
Okay.
I'd always encourage an advisor, if a property was built within the last 10 years, to ask the customer, does it have an estate charge? We can then help the advisor prep that case and look at what they need to ask and what they don't need to ask. How much is it? Is it third party ran? Is it ran by the residents? And then we've got as much information as we possibly can to make an informed decision for that advisor. But I'd say they're the most kind of ones that cause the most issues.
Okay. So this links into the next question then, is what should advisors look out for before submitting a case?
I think it's doing a strong initial sense check is really important, making sure that the documents that are required are with it. ID is a simple one. And also, if a case seems to fit outside the norm, to really start painting that picture to help the underwriter when it initially comes through to them.
I think it's similar to the last example of, am I sending all the information needed to make a lending decision? So if you submit an application and there's a large amount of funds for debt consolidation, have you written what those debts are that will help us make an informed decision, rather than having to then give you a call or send an email saying, can you just provide a breakdown? Again, the more information we have at the outset, the quicker and more informed a decision we can make, whilst only requesting the absolute necessary that we need to.
And also at Pure, we pride ourselves in service at Pure. What are the biggest causes of delay in a case? So what can slow a case down, and what can advisors do to keep that moving along?
I'd say missing documentation would be the biggest delay of cases. What I would do is, we've got a fantastic document, we've looked at this before, on our library, which is looking at packaging a case. On there you've got a checklist which basically shows everything that you need. We find that generally, once cases are fully packaged, initially they do tend to go through a lot quicker and it's a lot smoother. So just ensuring that documentation is there at initial submission.
And just the last point as well, making sure that you've got everything and giving you all the information up front as well.
Absolutely.
So when a case is slowing down, then what is happening behind the scenes? What kind of things are we doing?
It's often that we're really working through the complexities of the case. It's normally a complex case that we've got. So it could be complexities involving the valuation, it could be the legal side of things, or third parties. And more often than not, it's ones where the sticky cases where we're looking to turn the no's into yeses and looking to support it with a robust rationale. So these are requiring a lot more research than a standard vanilla case, if you like.
So at that point, would you be requesting further information from the advisor if needed, and
Absolutely.
dealing with
What you'll find is that the underwriter does a lot of that themselves. They will do as much as they possibly can through a wealth and plethora of tools that they've got to hand. And then that may include speaking to the advisor to obtain further information to support the case.
So just thinking about the complex cases, can you share an example of a complex case that worked well?
So thinking about where we'd want to turn a no into a yes, we had an inquiry for a property that was modern method of construction, and this would typically fall outside our lending criteria. But rather than saying no, we did some research on the property, which turned out to be ICF, which is insulated concrete form, which is hollow foam blocks with reinforced concrete. So we looked at, yes, our criteria says this would be a no, but is this acceptable to mainstream market lenders? Would it pose any saleability issues? And what's the overall proposition like? Because on paper, yes, this looks like a no, but it does look like a good bet. So can we try and do it? So we put together a really strong rationale, approached the funder, and they said, yes, we will look at this. So I think that's a good example of something that's complicated, but when you actually look at the nitty-gritty, it's a good proposition, so we'll try and do it.
Oh, that sounds really positive. So are you seeing any changes in the types of cases and any trends in the types of cases that are coming through at the moment?
Yes, we are seeing a broader range of property types and customer needs, often being a lot more complex than they were previously, that are needing a more detailed underwriting review and assessment.
Similar to what Gav said, there's a lot more complex properties rather than vanilla properties at the moment.
We're hearing that from the advisors as well.
It's typically where there'd be one factor that puts something outside criteria. We're now looking at multiple, where it might be near commercial but also flood risk. So it's looking at having a holistic view of these applications applications and not focusing on the one thing that's a no and looking at the overall proposition. Gav mentioned it earlier, it's all about long-term marketability. So the types of cases might be more complex, but that doesn't mean that we're applying that approach. We're looking at everything with an application.
Yeah, okay. So how is underwriting evolving in the equity release space? And do you think that there's room for more tech in underwriting?
Absolutely. I think in terms of automation, AI, there will always be a need for that.
Yeah.
I think it's progressive and we need to embrace that. But in terms of where it fits in the underwriting space, it would be used to improve efficiencies, processes, to get decisions quicker. However,
Yeah.
I think there's always a fundamental need for a human
Yeah.
behind that. As we said, the decisions are getting more complex, and they're needing a more detailed review of the information that's in front of them.
Yeah.
That's beyond the scopes of any AI or automation would do. So whilst it would be great and is needed to assist, I think that human judgement and also personal touch that you get from the underwriters will never be replaced. So there'll always be the need for underwriting, but assisted by the AI and automation.
They can help.
I think just to add to what Gav said, I think we pride ourselves on that personal touch at Pure.
Yeah.
Underwriters aren't just sat behind a computer. We'll always have a conversation with the advisor, particularly when it's a no. Giving an advisor that bit of additional information, as much as we want the business, might help them place it elsewhere.
It's really important.
So I think, agree, AI definitely can be used, but we'll always want somebody who will have that actual conversation as well.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So when a case is submitted to us, what is the process that you'll go through? What's the first steps?
So the underwriter will look at the application form, look at the property, see if there's anything that puts it outside criteria. We'll then pull the searches for the application. So we'll do credit checks, anti-money laundering checks, flood checks, look at it on land registry. We've then got the full picture by having all those documents. Yeah. We'll then contact the advisor, let them know what's outstanding on the application, hopefully nothing, and then instruct the valuation and the solicitors. We then wait for the valuation to come back, assess the valuation. It might be that additional questions are needed from the surveyor, where we'll raise a pre-valuation query. That's similar to another question, might look like it's gone quiet, but that's because we're getting the information that we need. Hopefully on the back of that, it will be an easy yes and we'll send the offer out. If it isn't, we might look at referring to the funder or requesting further information from the advisor to make a decision. Again, priding ourselves on picking the phone up and having that conversation throughout.
Yeah, and just to add on to that regards to the process, when a case does come in, it's allocated to an individual underwriter that looks after that case from start to finish. And as I say, the core emphasis being on ringing the broker as well and building that relationship up and discussing the case. I think that's really key and important, having that ownership and being able to understand the case rather than being passed from person to person. They'll have a full understanding of that case and the intricacies of it, as we said, particularly with them being more complex now. Yeah,
and I think that goes back to one of the perceptions about underwriters actually, is often advisors think that we're not allowed to talk to them, but actually it's really strong to be able to talk to an underwriter because you're getting the information firsthand then, so that's really good.
Absolutely, and through conversation you can often see that the course of a case can change or the thinking, and it can really assist in having a true picture and, like I said before, painting that picture and bringing it to life.
Yeah, rather than going backwards and forwards to different departments.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
So the sending the offer out, is that when your role finishes at that point?
If we need to, we can help with the special conditions, and we'll look at, if something comes up post offer from the solicitors that might need an underwriter to look into, then we'll help out with that. But typically, once we've issued the offer, it's straight on to the next one.
Yeah, brilliant. That's all been really, really interesting. Thank you. And just one last question to you both. We ask this of all of our guests. So if you could take your younger selves out for a coffee, what advice would you give yourselves?
I think mine would be to go with your gut and worry less, and that it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what I think I'd like to give myself.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I think mine's probably a little bit less serious. I'd say get a pet sooner. I absolutely love having a cat, so I'd say, go for it sooner. Don't wait until you're in your 30s.
Multiple cats or just
no, just the one.
Cat,
I'm obsessed enough to just have one.
That's brilliant. Thank you both so much.
You're welcome.